How's it going, everybody? I am Al Smizzle. You may know me as Al Zeidenfeld if you watched or read my articles on ESPN or listened to the 06010 podcast, the Daily Fantasy Edge podcast, or one of the other 74 podcasts that I do. We're live here on twitch.tv/Al_Smizzle, going through the Week 13 first look, building a lineup, absolutely no research. This is not a plug-and-play lineup for you to use on DraftKings in Week 13. This is a process look at how we want to go about building a lineup, although people have been tracking these first look lineups and have said that they've been doing pretty well every single week. So it's good to know that the process works, even though we may get a little bit away from this lineup. They have put up solid points as the weeks have piled up, especially on Thanksgiving, week 11, week 10. First look lineups did really well. So let's dig right into the slate this week. And if you're watching on YouTube, please click that subscribe button. Click that like button. Let's see if we can get 500 likes on this video before the week is out. I'll be back on Friday with the question and answer. Let's see if we can get 500 likes on that video as well. As we continue to grow the channel, I'm very grateful and thankful to you guys for helping me build this YouTube channel every single week with every single slate. So we look at quarterbacks. Chat, what do we like to do? We always look to pay down at quarterback. We don't want to spend too much. We want to try and save money to spend it at the positions that matter. Running back, wide receiver, maybe a little bit less so at tight end, and we have money left over for our flex. We will have to find some value here. Let's see where we're going to find it. Tom Brady, obviously a great play. Phillip Rivers against Cleveland, also a really good play. Cam Newton, great GPP play, especially when he plays in the Superdome. Look at his last 5 years there, even though it's a divisional game. His numbers have been off the charts with one dud, I think, in his visits to New Orleans over the past few years. Jared Goff against Arizona, probably not a play that I'm going to make this week. I do have to pay attention to him. I don't want to go with attacking Patrick Peterson. That defense is scary, and they do get pressure on the passer. Drew Brees against Carolina, sure. Now we're getting into the range where we want to kind of attack. Houston is a defense that we've attacked constantly since Merciless and J.J. Watt went down. Marcus Mariota, we're really going to have to monitor his health over the course of the week. Only threw the ball 25 times in Week 12. And I'm not sure that I want to go with him in Week 13, knowing that he just did not look good and did not look healthy against a divisional opponent in Indianapolis who has been just crushed all season long. And now he faces off against Houston, another soft opponent against the pass. He's going to be in the back of my mind. He's somebody I'm considering for tournaments right now. Let's look a little bit cheaper. Alex Smith has not been good. Josh McCown against KC, interesting, especially with the, 5 weeks in a row now that Robbie Anderson, they're preparing his bust for Canton as we speak, Robbie Anderson. He has graduated from preseason super stud to in-season all-pro with his, with his performance. Tyrod Taylor, somebody I think should be in play for us here. The problem with him is the ceiling, right? One game above 25 points all year as they mostly circle around the run. He doesn't really throw the ball all that much. The one time he did get his attempts up, attempts don't always lead to more fantasy points with quarterbacks, but if you're only throwing it 18 and 25 times, you really have to be super efficient, and touchdowns is what really drives the scoring. Josh McCown, by comparison, multiple touchdowns in many games this year, multiple games above 25 points. And considering that that's, you're talking about a quarterback in Tyrod Taylor who has rushing ability, those players do tend to give you more upside. Fitzpatrick's been good, hasn't thrown a ton of touchdowns. Green Bay, very soft against the pass. We have a lot of quarterbacks in the cheap range this week, in the cash game range, 5,500 and down, who have a lot of touchdowns or have good matchups, multiple touchdown possibility. One that I want to think about here is Blake Bortles. I know. Calm down. Chat. Calm down. I know. It's Blake Bortles. He needs 15.5 points. He's done that a bunch and a lot more recently, especially with the emergence of Marquise Lee as his favorite target, who was kind of shut down last week against Patrick Peterson in that matchup, deservedly so. D.D. Westbrook starting to get into shape, starting to really exert his ability at the NFL level, had a big-time drop, or had a big-time catch that he did not hold on to along the sidelines this week. Does have running ability. He ran in 2 this week. I'm not expecting that sort of output again, but at least we know that he can do it against an Indy defense that on the road has been really bad. Could be a situation where we want to fade Bortles here. with one of these other guys. There's a lot of players in this range that we can certainly go with. I'm going to go with Bortles because he's 100 cheaper than McCown here. I think these 4 plays right here are all fine. I think McCown, Taylor, Bortles, and Fitzpatrick from a first look point of view are all fine. I'm going to save the 100 and come down here to Bortles. Let's look at running backs real quick. Most expensive running back on the slate, Alvin Kamara, with his 15 touches a game. He had 11 last week. 11 touches, 2 touchdowns, 39 points. He's been above 25 points each of the last 4 games. He's scored, 6 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. He has not gotten more than 17 touches in any one of those games. God damn it. I just don't know what to do with this. I keep playing him in tournaments, but I've never had him near my cash game lineup, and it sucks. I just don't know what to do with it. I honestly don't. He is now finally priced higher than Alvin Kamara's priced higher than Ingram. They're both at 7,900 and above. Gurley, a lot of usage there for him, leading the league in yards from scrimmage. Let's see if we can find a little bit lower, a little bit of a value play. Not going to mess with McCoy this week, although he is going to be involved in the team's passing game. 4 targets, 4 catches again, and 22 carries against Kansas City in a game that they won. They should be trailing in this game against New England. They will try and control the ball. Gordon against Cleveland, efficiency way down, right? 20 carries, 4 yards a carry. 21 carries, no, nothing. 3 for 3. It's good. It's not great. You're going to get the goal line looks, and it's a game that they should be winning and have multiple trips into the red zone. Gordon's interesting at 7.4, but I think we can do better. Coleman against Minnesota. He's going to get the carries even against a really tough defense as long as Devonta Freeman is still out and concussed. Jordan Howard not going to get any carries. Not going to get any targets. He got 2 targets last week after, really not being involved in the passing game in a game that they were getting crushed. This is a game that they should be playing from ahead, you would assume, at home against the 49ers, who've been a treasure trove for opposing running backs this year. He is somebody that we have to consider. Leonard Fournette, also somebody we have to consider here against Indianapolis. 12 carries last week. The problem is he relies a lot on big plays, much like Kamara, much like Hunt at the beginning of this year. So if you think he's going to get all the goal line work, which he will, he's not really going to be involved all that much in the passing game. You can't really count on him a ton in PPR. It helps a little bit, but he's not a big-time passing game guy. The guy that's most interesting to me is right here at 5,900 against Chicago, Carlos Hyde. Just look at the target count. This column right here. Full PPR on DraftKings, 5,900, 13 targets last week, 3 against the Giants, 11 against Arizona, 9 against Philly, 8 against Dallas. They have to utilize him in the passing game. Still getting 12 to 15, 12 to 17 carries every single week on the ground, but that PPR usage is really what's buoying his value here. And if he happens to fall into the end zone, which is not completely out of the equation here, he has 4 on the year coming in 2 games only. This game does not project to have a lot of high scoring, but we need about 18 points out of Carlos Hyde for cash games to feel good. But the fact that he has this floor, 7 catches, that's 7 points without any sort of yardage. 7 points, 2, 9 points, 4. So any yardage that we get above that, if he gets 60 yards from scrimmage and 6 catches, that's 12 points. Just 60 yards on 20 touches. That's 3 yards a touch. I'm not expecting that to be his yards per touch moving forward, but that this target count 13 isn't going to be sustainable. But 8 targets is not out of the question for somebody like Carlos Hyde. I'm going to plug him in real quick. We'll move from there. See if there's any value, guys. Dion Lewis has been fantastic. The usage has been good. He is involved sometimes in the passing game. He has seeded some goal line carries. He was in on the first carry inside the 5 last week. In week 12, then gave way for Rex Burkhead, who had 2 rushing touchdowns. Dion Lewis, the volume is going to be there. They're going to be ahead. I don't mind Dion Lewis at 5,500 here. Needs about 15, 16 points to reach value. Burkhead, if you're feeling froggy at 5K, I think I like Dion Lewis a little bit better at 55 than Burkhead at 5K. The price has come way up, and he's going to have a lot of ownership on him just based on the fact that people are going to chase those 2 touchdowns from last week. Looking lower, nobody's really thrilling. Crowell's getting usage, but not somebody that I really want to have exposure to on DraftKings. What about Duke Johnson? same sort of thing, right? A lot of usage in the passing game. 4,800, needs just under 15 points to get there. He's averaging 13.3 on the season. Essentially being utilized as a wide receiver, but has a running back tag. I think he's somebody we have to pay attention to at 4,800. Not really a guy that I want to plug in as my initial, but definitely flex usage for me out of him. In terms of our stud running back, we already have Bortles in there. We could pivot to one of the other ones if we want. Fournette is in play for me here. Gurley is always going to be in play for me with the amount of usage that he gets. Not really a 100-yard guy. He's had what? Okay, he had it earlier in the season. Recently, though, it's being split kind of evenly between his running game and pass game usage. He's somewhat safe at 8,200. Although it's not a home game, I tend to look for home favorites. That means that we have McCoy, we have Lewis, Lewis is on the road. McCoy would not be, Fournette would be one of my favorite plays here. Usually I'd go with Gordon, but I'm afraid of the inefficiency that he has. Jordan Howard, not really a fan of him not being involved in the passing game and it being a much lower team total for them. So let's just lean on Fournette here at 7,800. Moving on to wide receiver. Keenan Allen is somebody that I really want to take a look at here because even though Cleveland does have a lockdown cornerback, we're going to have to take a look earlier or later in the week at how much he shadows in the slot because that's where Keenan Allen runs most of his routes. Okay? The targets are back. We saw this happen earlier in the season where he was routinely above 10 targets a game. And then when Mike Williams came into play, it cut out Keenan Allen's targets for whatever reason, the games that he was healthy. And then Mike Williams out, 13 and 14 targets, a lot of low ADOT targets, very easy to convert into catches. 8.3K is expensive for a wide receiver. Julio Jones jumps way back up, and he's going to get Xavier Rhodes this week, although Rhodes was abused on Thanksgiving Day by Marvin Jones Jr. Probably not somebody I'm going to attack unless we think that there's some lingering injury problems there. Thielen, definitely very interesting for me, regardless of what happens with the Atlanta cornerbacks in most matchups. Thielen, a floor of 5 targets or 5 catches pretty much every game this year. And with Diggs drawing the toughest matchup on the outside, Thielen spending most of his time in the slot, although some situations he is on the outside. Thielen's been a fantastic play every single week this year. The price has not come up to a point where it's completely restrictive. We've seen the touchdowns regress towards the mean, and that meant they came up, considering he had none for the first 7 weeks of this season for the amount of usage that he had. Good to see that positive regression from him. Let's continue to look a little bit lower. Tyreek Hill, somebody I just do not play, and I don't want any shares of that offense. Devontae Adams is interesting. As much as we've trashed Hundley, he does seem to have some sort of a rapport here with Devontae Adams. 20, 23, 19, 8, 10, 9. Jordy's off the table for me. Devontae Adams is not. And at 6,500, I think he makes for a really good play here, especially against Tampa Bay, who we abused basically every single week. They're one of the teams, Tampa Bay, Cleveland, and Indianapolis have been 3 teams that we've been targeting every single week with wide receivers who have good red zone usage and the ability to get behind a defense, right? It's why we were so heavy on Julio Jones in week 12 was because Julio Jones, though he did have the highest red zone usage on his team, it's well spread out amongst the rest of his teammates, but he has the ability to score from outside the red zone, and that gets accentuated against a matchup like Tampa Bay. Devontae Adams seems like a plug and play for me at 6,500, at least right now. Cooper Kupp. Good Lord. That's expensive. I'm probably going to have no Cooper Kupp this week. That's okay. Cooper Kupp at 6,400 or Crabtree at 6,600, assuming that he doesn't get suspended. Is he going to get suspended, do you think? For throwing that phantom punch after Debo ripped his chain off for the 2nd straight year? Man, that was my mama's chain. My mama gave me that chain. Hopkins going to get a ton of usage against a bad secondary. Right? We're going to get a ton of volume here against a bad secondary in Tennessee that's given up points in chunks to wide receivers. I like Hopkins as well. I think I like Hopkins better than Thielen, although I do like Thielen a lot. I'm going to take the volume increase with Hopkins here. I do want to have shares of Allen. I don't know if I can get all 3. I want to have some exposure to that San Diego offense. It's probably going to come at tight end. because Cleveland just seeds a tight end touchdown every single week. So now we need a value at wide receiver. 2 targets for Marquise Lee last week, matched up on Patrick Peterson. One of those catches, he was not matched up on Peterson. That one catch and those 2 targets, he was definitely not matched up on Peterson there. So we could go Marquise Lee at 5,200, considering that he sees 9, 11, 12 targets in games where he's not covered by, the blanket of all blankets. 5,200 is interesting. Let's plug our 3K defense in here. Who's it this week? 3K defenses. We have 2. Broncos against Miami or Lions against Baltimore. Whatever. Who cares? It's a 3K defense. I mean, let's go with the home defense, right? Isn't that usually what we do? We go with the home defense there. 3K defense. I really don't even care who it is. Tight end. I mean, whatever. Let's just plug Hunter Henry. We'll look at the other tight ends, but we're just going to plug Hunter Henry. Just because Cleveland is the matchup of dreams. So are the Giants. Jared Cook, more expensive. And against the Giants here, I'm going to take the cheaper one in the best matchup. Jack Doyle, 5,200, getting wide receiver usage. I like him. Evan Ingram, ton of usage against Oakland, who has also been bad against tight ends. Miami against Denver, not going to target a Miami tight end this week. Gronk, fine for tournaments. Kelsey, fine for tournaments. Kelsey is probably the only Chief that I'm going to consider, at least until something changes. He's the only one that really has a 20-point realistic output, 15 plus on that offense right now. Jack Doyle, real solid. We mentioned him. Kyle Rudolph as a pivot. We're going to have a lot more traffic this week against Atlanta based on what they do and funnel targets towards running backs and wide receivers. And coming off of a 2-touchdown game on an island spot on Thanksgiving. Austin Seferian-Jenkins continues to rack up targets against Kansas City. 7 more targets for the tight end there. 4,000. Is there a cheap option here that we can go to? Nobody really thrilling. Seals Jones he's come out of nowhere. Literally out of nowhere. And now we have to pay attention to him. 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games. 11 targets over the last 2 games. I tend to ignore this column. People are going to be drawn to this one like a moth to a flame. I look at this here, targets and receptions, and this is real solid. At 3,200, we need 9 points out of him. He's gotten 11.2 points on raw, with no touchdowns here, and he got 8 points, 8.4 points here on his raw output without touchdowns. And that they utilize him within the red zone. We'll look at how many red zone targets he's got in the last 2 weeks. I'm not averse to having Ricky Seals-Jones shares this week against the Rams. Although it is a tough matchup. The Rams are a very good defensive team. Moving to flex. That gives us 4,300 left to spend here. Let's see if there's a value play that we can go to. Rodgers, Ivory, Curse. Are you in love with the Coco? Trying to chase down. Kaiser is inefficient, but he does target him a lot. 7, 11, 8. Kaiser likes him some Corey Coleman, even though he was out for a bunch of time with injury. He's back now and getting peppered with targets. I don't hate that. Not going to play Eckler here. D.D. Westbrook at 4,100. I'm probably not going to stack it that much. I'm not going to go Marquise Lee, Fournette, Bortles. I'm not going with a full-on onslaught. Maybe in a tournament, but definitely not in cash. I'd have to come off of Bortles and Lee to get there. I really do think that Coleman's the best play here right now with this first look lineup. We could come down on defense. We wanted to get somebody a little bit more expensive. But expectation here, right? Probably expecting 9 targets out of Devontae Adams.
Oh, yeah.
Shadow Song, thank you for the $5 donation.
The video pick was amazing. Briss, it hurt me, though. Looking forward to this week. Thanks always for your advice.
Not a problem, man. Thanks for being a part of the stream, and I appreciate the support. Thank you very, very much. Hopkins, 12 targets. Very realistic to expect with a ceiling of 15 or 16. Marquise Lee. Stop with the highlighting. Expectation, 9, 10 targets here for Marquise Lee? Maybe a little bit lower if you think that they're going to get way up, so 7 or 8 targets here. Corey Coleman, expectation, chasing against the Chargers. 8, 9 targets, right? That's a lot of targets to look at coming out of those 4 pass catching spots. And Hunter Henry, with his 4, 5, 6 targets and a massive touchdown expectation this week going up against Cleveland, as long as he doesn't get vultured by Antonio Gates. So I'm all right with this lineup. We could pivot off to another quarterback if you don't like Bortles in that same range. We could pivot off of Marquise Lee if you want to go with a different route there. I'm fine with Fournette. Love the targets with Hyde. Love all these targets here. Gives us a really high floor for cash games this week and a nice base to go off of with our first look lineup on the week. Best of luck to you guys this week. Stay tuned for all my podcasts that come out on Thursday. My Best Buys article, which also comes out on Thursday. And be right back here on Twitch for the Friday Q&A and the Sunday morning anti-Tinkercast, leading you all the way up to lock in the final 45 minutes. If you're still watching on YouTube, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys getting all the way through the video. Make sure you click that subscribe and that like button before you click somewhere else. Appreciate you being here, and we'll catch up to you next time. Bye, everybody.